Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I'm here. I'm Tony King. Welcome to another episode of Wednesday Wisdom. My gosh, have I got a treat for you today? I have scoured the earth. I've scoured the planet. I've scoured everywhere I could find, as y'all know, to get the very best top tier talent to help you take your real estate business to that next level. Whether you're going from a four figure real estate business, maybe part time, into a 5 figure business where you're able to do it full time, and then from a 5 figure to a 6 figure, 6 figure to a 7 figure business, whatever 10x looks like for you. My job, as I see it, is to go and help you get from where you are to where you want to be in your real estate career. So, in my relentless effort to do so, I was able to get a hold of one of the top coaches in the nation. Former KW coach, which you'll talk about, now EXP coach, because that's just how things go. And I'm so excited to have the incredible Mr. Robert Camacho here with us as he is leading the national charge with the Expand coaching program. Tips, tools, tricks that you can take right now, apply them in your business today, and put those things into practice and level up your real estate career to that next level. So without further ado, Mr. Robert Camacho, please, Coach Camacho, please let us know who you are. Introduce yourself to the audience, please.
Well, Tony, first of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here on your podcast. I'm pretty excited about being here. You know, it's kind of fun to kind of get out and share what we've learned over the years, because we make a lot of mistakes, and over time you get better and better, so you make fewer of them. And yet, yes, my name is Robert Camacho. I just the nutshell, I started my career in accounting and finance in the corporate world. Oh my gosh, square peg in a round hole for almost 20 years. Started investing in real estate. Then found out that selling real estate could be super profitable also. Started selling real estate, and then I started selling real estate in 2009 with another brokerage. Started coaching in 2015 when I joined a pretty elite coaching organization from, as you mentioned, Keller Williams, the Bold Coach team, and learned a lot. That was probably 5 years of my biggest growth, and I actually learned what a coach did. And how they could improve our performance. And when we're getting ready to go to the Super Bowl, right? And you look at these great athletes that are on the field. Every one of them, they're their tops in their fields, and they all have coaches. Go figure, right? You got a quarterback coach, a linebacker coach, a receiving coach. I mean, all of this, and they're the best of the best. So it was pretty early that I started realizing, man, I need a coach. I need some help in that area so that I can just get better, right? Coaches really help you find blind spots. And so I've been doing that, and now bringing some of that coaching information over to EXP, and I am super happy to share it with the world.
Yeah, no, and thank you so much. And I think that you hit on something great there, and it's a common trend. I promise you all, we're not trying to sell anybody on coaching, but I can tell you, look, the reality is, out of all of the top producers I've had Jay Kinder here, I've had Elizabeth Riley, I've had Niley Williams, I've had all of, these top level icons and top producers. And one theme they all talk about is mentoring and or coaching. Every single one of them, and how much value they get out of that. I mean, Michael Jordan had a coach, right? Kobe Bryant had a coach. And I went to see the Whitney Houston movie last week. Whitney Houston had a voice coach, had a singing coach. It's like, Are you kidding me? Whitney Houston needed a vocal coach. Beyonce, these folks have coaches. So I think that it speaks to whatever level you're at in your game. You need someone that is able to take that 30,000 foot view and take that off the field view to see, to your point, where the blind spots are. So how do you do that? I guess when you go into a business and you're helping to take that real estate entrepreneur to the next level, what's the first thing that you look at when you're trying to isolate a blind spot?
That's a really great question. There's so many things we do. We ask a lot of questions and kind of find out what they're doing. And yet one of the key things is, I learned long ago that you can actually tell what's important to a person by looking at two things. Number one, you look at their calendar, and then you look at where they spend their money, their checkbook. So we talk, number one, where are you spending your time, right? What are we doing? Because that's time is a finite resource. It's not renewable forever and ever. So time, and then of course, where are you spending your money? And you get a real good idea of the priorities of that individual. And yet, what I like to really get folks started on, if we're going to the very beginning, is what are you feeding your mind? What's going into your mind that, consciously, unconsciously, that's going to show up during the day. And it all starts with mindset. Tony, I know you've heard that, right? Everything starts and stops with mindset. You
It
got to
does.
have that right mindset, the eye of the tiger, right? And what goes into your mind first thing out of the day? Are we looking at Facebook and all the stuff that's going on back and forth, or are we listening to some uplifting, something on YouTube? Maybe you subscribe to some gratitude subscriptions or whatever. But we start out that way. Start out with something super positive, because that gets your day going. The first thing we do is going to be what carries you through the rest of the day. So I like to start. Number one thing is mindset. What are we feeding our brain? So we can, it's one thing to keep out negativity, right? That's one way of looking at it. It's another thing to purposely feed ourselves with some really good material, really good stuff.
Right. I love it. I love it. So, as we talk about feeding your mind and putting the good stuff in, right? Garbage in, garbage out, right? And that kind of thing. And I heard Zig Ziglar one time say an interesting quote on that. It's like, he's like, it's not garbage in, garbage out. It's garbage in and then it stays in. So you got to be very careful about letting the garbage in the first place, as opposed to thinking it's going to go back out. Anyways, I would love to know, I guess, when you say mindset and you talk about, being intentional about putting the positive things in there, what are some of the go-to resources that you suggest to your clients and to our agents, all over Texas and all over the world, really? What do you suggest, first thing waking up, right? What do you suggest that input, that brain breakfast should be?
And this is one of the things we coach a lot of folks to do is, when you wake up in the morning, write down 5 things that you're grateful for. Before your feet hit the floor in the morning, have that journal right next to you and write down 5 things that you're grateful for. It could be the same thing every day, or it could be something different. And as we go through life, we become grateful for different things. I had a mentor one day ask me a question. He says, "Robert, what are you grateful for?" And I named the typical stuff. I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for my family and my kids. And, I'm grateful I get to do something that I really love. And he says, "Okay, that's awesome. What else?" And he kept asking me, "What else? What else?" And he says, "Robert, take a moment. Imagine for a second the only things that you had tomorrow were the things that you were grateful for today."
Wow.
And I was like taken back. I'm like,
Wow.
holy cow. He says, "Have you ever been grateful for running water in your house? Have you been grateful for the fresh food that you get to eat? Have you ever been grateful that you have a car that runs? All of these things." And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many things we just assume they're going to be part of our life forever, and yet they're not necessarily always there. So get up in the morning. What are we grateful for? That starts, that attitude of gratitude, because when we're in a grateful state, that's one of the highest levels of energy. That's one of the highest levels of passion, is when we're in a state of gratitude, because it's really hard to be grateful for something and be negative at the same time. It's almost, you can't do that. And so you have this positive energy, this gratitude. So I like to start with gratitude, and then take a look at, find somebody, an author, somebody. And there's so many great ones out there. You touched on one: Zig Ziglar, Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins, Brene Brown. Just go to YouTube them, right? Do it. Go to their TEDx and just start listening to some of this powerful stuff. Or you can go to TED Talks and search something that you're interested in. Search, how can I be more grateful? How can I be more thankful? And just start putting that in your mind. And that's how I like to start the day. That really kind of gets my juices going. The days when I don't do that, the days just don't go as well as they could. Let's just put it that way.
Imagine that the only things you get tomorrow are the things you're grateful for today. Wow. That puts an interesting spin, interesting perspective on it, for sure. Wow. So once you get the mindset right, okay, and again, we're going to kind of imagine that you're coaching everyone that's watching this, and we got the mindset right. We put the positive stuff in there. We start from this area of gratitude. Now we get into the nitty gritty, right? And how do we start to level up our business now that we actually have got that negativity out and we believe that we can do it? We believe we can go from a 6-figure business to a 7-figure business next year. Maybe let's take 3 tracks, right? The first track is kind of your new agent that's kind of just getting started and wanting to build that business. That next level of agent is, maybe they're cappers at their brokerage, and they're, got a substantial business, but they want to level up. And then finally, kind of those mega icons, those teams that are really really crushing it, and they've got a team going and doing this whole thing. So I'd love to hear what your guidance is once we get that foundation upon which to build a successful real estate enterprise. What's your guidance to each one of those types?
Oh, love that. Great question. Because it's different for everybody, right? It's
It
different,
is.
especially those levels. Now, I want to sneak something in between waking up and when we get to work.
Okay.
Because I think it's vital. That is the emotional energy, the love energy with the people that are in your household. I think that is significant because a lot of folks, you get up in the morning and it's go 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 go. Let's get the kids to school. Let's do it as fast as we can so we can get to work. And yet, with those that are in your family, we got to spend some time there and spend that focused time in the morning, because just like it's important for us to have our mindset for the day, it's important for our kids, our spouse, whoever's living in your household, to feel that energy from you also, so that they get their day started on the right foot and they're moving forward with powerful energy. And if you got young ones at home, you want them to feel loved as they're going out the door, right? So spend time with those that are closest to you, because and this is so cliche, but Tony, we hear this, we don't know how much time anybody has here, right?
Wow.
That you could get hit on a bus tomorrow, and or somebody in your family, and the last thing, that regret, is if you had an argument with them in the morning before they're leaving out, or if you made a nasty, curt comment, because your kids are running late, right?
Right.
And yet we just got to slow down sometimes, because time is finite. Those that are around us, that's that love energy, that emotional energy. So, hug and kiss the people you love, give them a good breakfast, say hi, do well in school, see you later, honey. And now it's time to get into our day. So I just wanted to add that, because there's steps, right? We want to live a full life, a complete life. And when we're working with folks, we like to coach to the whole person, as we say, because if you're having a bad day in the morning at home, guess what happens in the office or in the cloud office, right? Or with your first client? It's going to not be so positive. So thank you for allowing me just to interject that piece there.
No, that's huge. And I think that, it speaks to pouring out, right? But before you have any reasonable expectation to get anything of the day, what are you pouring out first, right? And if you're pouring out that love, you're pouring out attention to your family and to those that are near and dear and closest to you, that makes room for everything else. And that makes room for you to start receiving. So.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They feel your love, you feel theirs, man, it's going to be a great day. So
that's it.
So then the next thing, and there's some similarities into this, is what are the, this is a season where we're starting a new year, and everybody should already have their business plans, right? Their business plans should be done, their goals and what we're knocking out. And because really the 2023 started on Thanksgiving Day. Because generally most of what we put under contract is going to close in 2023. So 2023 started the new year. So if we're just getting out, finally making our first calls of the year, we're already behind the 8 ball at this point. So let's talk about a new agent, because they're a little bit different. The new agent, and maybe this is more consistent, is new agent, create a list. Get a list. It all starts with a list. This is create a list. Make a list of everybody you need to talk to. Make a list of your sphere of influence, everybody on your telephone. Make a list. Then call them, asking about real estate, or, who do you know looking to buy or sell a home that I can talk to today. Call them, and then put them on a follow-up schedule forever. Forever. And we just got to stay in touch with them forever. So you make a list, you call them, and then put them on a follow-up schedule, and then you call them again, and then put them on another follow-up schedule, and then you call them again, and so on and so forth. And while we're doing that, now let's go ahead and find a mastermind or a training class or a coaching event or something that's going to help you move up your level of knowledge in maybe a call script, maybe in how to set up your database, how to put all that information together. And yet it starts with action. For new agents, people that are coming into business, I kind of chuckle to myself, Tony, because new agents will come in and they get really focused on their website. I want to get my website up and running. They'll spend, a couple weeks, a couple months working on it. And I'm like, well, have you called everybody?
How many calls have you made? Yeah, right.
And they're like, no, I want my website because I want to get that traffic from California that's coming here. And it's like, wait, heck, you're a new agent. If they're on your website, they're going to be on everybody else's website at the same time. And who do you think's got more systems in place? Who's got better conversations they can have with that internet traffic? Let's focus right now on the people who know you, like you, and love you, and will do immediate business if they have a real estate need. Because if we don't call them now, somebody else is, and they may not even know that you have switched careers and now you're selling real estate.
Right.
I mean, in the first 12 months of my career, Tony, 3 people in my sphere bought or sold a home, and they didn't use me. And that was, this is a while back, and it was about $25,000 in commissions. And going from a corporate job with steady paycheck to commission income, $25,000 is a lot of money. And it was my fault because I did not reach out to them. So that's how I would kind of work with from a new agent perspective. Just get on the phones, talk to people, because there's 2 ways of getting business. One of them is you put a marketing plan, you put the message out there, right? And the intent is when you have a great message, your phone's going to start ringing. Right. And so that's social media. That's billboards that are very expensive. That's door hangers and all that kind of stuff. And yet that takes time. It takes time to develop a relationship. It takes time for people to know who you are. So, but however, marketing is super powerful when done well over time. And yet you can get a client today, right now, if you call enough people. If you call enough people,
it's a numbers game.
It's total numbers game. It's a total numbers game. So, I mean, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I guarantee you there's going to be new listings going up on the MLS today, tomorrow, next week. The question is, why wasn't our name on that listing agreement? It's because we didn't find that person before the other realtor did. So it's really call the folks that know and love you already, who will do business with you. They trust you. You don't have to build that relationship because it's your family and friends. And sometimes we even leave out family and friends because we think, oh, they know what I'm doing. They know what I'm doing. They're going to send me business. Yeah. No, they won't. They don't remember what you do. In one of our classes, we do this exercise. I say, okay, guys, pull out your phone. The first 5 people at the top of the list. Everybody stand up. Remain standing if you know exactly the company everybody works with and exactly what they do within that company. Remain standing if you know that for the top 5 people. And you know what happens? Rarely is anybody left standing who knows those 2 things about the top 5.
Yeah, and that's your top 5. Yeah.
It's like, if you don't know people at that level, what makes you think they know you at that level? That you work at whatever brokerage you're at and you sell real estate, right?
That's huge.
That's my take on new agents.
Love it.
That database.
Love it. So new agents, of course, always start with that list, start with that sphere of influence, and build that database. They have, in many cases, they have no idea that, and it's so easy to look past that. What's in your hand, right? It's like God asked Moses, "What is that in your hand?" Right? The stick. Use that stick. We're going to use that stick for everything we're going to do all throughout the rest of this book. So, exactly. Same thing with us, right? Is what's that in your hand? In most cases, it's your cell phone. Use it. Right? There's so many incredible things, not to mention just the YouTube videos and some of the other stuff, trainings and all that kind of stuff to pour into your head. But as far as the outgoing sales and everything, we have a lot more powerful tool than that stick that Moses had all them years ago. So That's incredible. So what about those level up agents, right? That's yeah, they're experienced, but they're looking to take things to the next level.
I love that question. Again, let's keep focused on our mindset, right? It's always starts with mindset because we're bombarded by a lot of negativity. I mean, think about our whole business in one sense is negative. I mean, think about how many no's we get on a daily basis, right?
Yeah.
So we got to channel that energy, and so if you're kind of in that middle tier, you've been doing this for a couple years, and you want to add another transactions this year. We really focus on prospecting. You know, that's how I cut my teeth in real estate. Is I talk to a lot of people and ask them if they knew anybody who was willing to buy or sell real estate. So we've got to grow and start systematizing the database. That's
What do you mean by that?
Pardon me?
So what do you mean by that? What do you mean by systematizing the database?
What you want to do is, number one, you want to have a database. See, there's 4 laws of a database. Number one, you build it. Number 2, you add to it all the time. You communicate with it, and then of course you service every lead that comes from it. So there's 4 laws of a database. So you build the database, you create it, and there's a million CRMs out there. Some people use their telephone as a CRM very, very effectively, contrary to popular demand. And yet the best CRM is the one that you're actually going to use, right? So it doesn't really matter what you use, a spreadsheet, phone, KV Core, whatever what you're using. So you build it, and then you got to set it up to where you can communicate with your database. So you want, like, here's the 4 pieces of information we coach that everybody should get. Number 1, name, cell phone, email address, and physical address. Because once you have that information, Tony, you can market all kinds of ways. Once you've got that, then we add the social media piece. And yet you can send flyers to their house. You can send postcards. You can, all that kind of stuff. It's hard to unsubscribe from a hard piece of mail, right? You can't unsubscribe from that. You can text them. You can call them. You can send them email drips. You can do pop buys. It's amazing what you can do when you create and you systematize your communication with everybody in your database. And when you've got a properly set up database and you're communicating with everybody in your database about 36 times a year, that's the research, you will generate really good business. So it's interesting. The reason we go and keep adding to our database is because most of our databases aren't big enough to generate the amount of business that we would love to have. So we keep adding to it. Once you've got a number in your database that's big enough and it's generating your income requirements, you don't need to go necessarily and add more people. They will come organically, but you don't have to actually go out and do a whole lot more. We do this exercise in class, and I'm just going to share some numbers here. I'm not going to bore everybody with all the numbers. And yet, with a database of 1,000 people, you ought to be having recurring transactions of about 64 per year. 64 transactions is pretty good. So it's like, okay, Robert, how come? I've got 1,000 people in my database, and I'm not getting 64. First of all, where does the 64 number come from? So I'm going to give you 2 numbers. 64 comes from you multiply 1,000 times 0.64. That is the split between homeowners and renters. In most databases, real estate databases, is going to lean a little bit higher to homeowners, and yet the national data, the national set from the U.S. Census says 64% of folks are homeowners, 36% are renters. So let's multiply 1,000 times 0.64. That's 640, right?
Right.
And then you go back to the census numbers. How many households move every year? It's about 10%. If you're looking at moving companies, it's about 9.8 to 11.6%, depending on what reports you're looking at. Settle on 10%, 640 times 10%, that's 64. Well, Robert, I'm not having that much. That many transactions are not in my $1,000 or my 1,000-person database. And I'm like, well, statistically they are. Well, what's happening is your name's not on the contract. You may not even be aware that somebody in your database bought, sold, or made a referral to somebody else, because we're not communicating them effectively. So if you've got a database, you want to start communicating with it at a high level. We spend so much time putting it together, and then we don't nurture the business from it because we're always chasing other business, when really those past clients, if we did really well, and Tony, the surveys rank us way up there on client survey. It's like 87% of people who bought and sold with their realtor would use their realtor again. They say, man, you get great service. It was amazing. And something less than 20% actually use their realtor for the next transaction because we lost contact with them.
Yep.
And you're shaking your head. You're like, yeah, I know that.
Yeah, it's and much less referrals, right? So, it's one thing to have that client come back to you. If we're saying that number drops, significantly, only 20% of them, but even fewer of those will refer you to someone else that they know, right? Because you're not the front of their mind. So you just lost out on at least 2 transactions because we're not staying in touch. So I think that's a huge leverage point for those agents that have businesses that are, kind of rocking and rolling. You're a capper, you're doing well, but you're missing out on an entire revenue stream by not leveraging and squeezing every drop from the juice that is that client for sure, right. And asking for those referrals. And I think that this is one of the most common misconceptions when it comes to referrals. And that is what you just spoke to. Agents think that because they did a great job, that just automatically means that their client's going to refer them. Okay. And that is the exact opposite of the truth. When you do a great job for someone, it doesn't automatically indicate, right, that they're going to refer you, because there's a cost to them. Number one, and this has all happened to all of us, I'm sure. You refer a friend to a restaurant, or your family's in town or whatever. You go to your favorite restaurant, and the service is incredible every time you go, except for the one time that you invite that person to go with you, and the chef is out sick, and you got your main waitress that you go to, she had pink eye, and like it's a fire everywhere. Right? We've all had that experience. So, we know that there can be a cost with referring someone. So unless, number one, you completely swept them off their feet in terms of delivery of your service to them as a client, but further beyond that, did you specifically ask them to send you that referral, right? You have to make that request, make that, I don't say a demand, but that expectation, right? Set that expectation. Hey, I did a great job from you, Susie, but I haven't heard any referrals, right? That's an okay conversation. That's a phone call to Cindy and say, hey, Cindy, how are things going? I'm glad you guys moved in. You guys are all set. Hey, I was wondering, I haven't got any referrals from you. Did I do a good job? Did I do something wrong? Because my expectation is that that I'm going to be getting referrals from you going forward. So who do you know? And I think that bleeds into your conversation before about who do you know if you haven't sent me a referral yet, because usually I get 3 or 4 referrals from every person that I close a home for. So what's up, Cindy?
Exactly. Well, I read a number, and I can't remember where I read this, and I've not been able to find it again, that said most people, the average person, knows 4 people who move a year.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, what if it was just 2? What if it was just 1?
Right. What does that do for your business? Yeah,
exactly. And if we're not in the game, you were talking about staying top of mind. 67% of people looking to buy or sell hire the first realtor they talk to. 67%. 89% only talk to 2 realtors before they actually, go into contract with a realtor to buy or sell. So like you're saying, if we're not number 1 or 2 in their mind, we don't have that real estate space up in their head, we're not going to get the business.
Right.
So we've got to be up there. And everybody these days knows 2 or 3 or 4 realtors. So
you can throw a rock in any direction, right? And
exactly.
hit a real estate agent probably. So that is the truth. So speaking of that, how do you advise clients or agents to compete? And because as this market is shifting, and we see agents running for the door, right? Because, they got into real estate thinking it was all, sunshine and puppy dogs and such. But now the market is shifting. And agents are taking a hit in their pocketbook, and they're starting to look around and say, hey, I might need to get a job. Like, I don't know if this thing's working anymore. And as that happens, it becomes more and more competitive. So,
Yep.
yes, you may still only have those two agents going on listing console, but it's getting competitive between the top two, right, in that market. So
Right.
what is your guidance, or what do you speak to as far as beating the competition?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and I like to. It requires us to change. Number one, we got to do things differently. It's going to be it's going to be a shocker for agents who came into the business since 2013. I mean, here in the Dallas Fort Worth area, pretty much across the country, we've been on an upward trend. It's been a great market since 2013.
Yeah.
The last couple years, like April, May of 2020 until about June of last year, that 2 year period was smoking hot, right? We didn't have to have very good skills. As a matter of fact, a lot of top agents, we started getting lazy. And here's what I mean by that. Not lazy from a work perspective, but you went to a seller listing, and instead of having the hard conversation of, let's prepare your house for sale. Let's change this carpet. Let's update your front flower beds. Let's paint these bedrooms. We got lazy because we knew all we got to do is put a sign in the yard. There's going to be 15 offers by the end of the weekend.
Right.
So we got lazy, and especially the agents who came in the last couple of years, they've not understood. They did not learn. When you go into a listing appointment, we've got to prepare the home for sale. That means sometimes we got to get a stager in there. Sometimes we got to have that hard conversation that that room that you got painted for your kids, that was really great. Did you do that for your kid? Or did you do that in anticipation the next buyer was going to pay more for that same mural? Right?
Right.
So we have to coach them, and they don't know. That's why they're hiring us. They want us to do that, and we do this so that the sellers can get the most amount of money in the shortest amount of time with the fewest hassles. And that's the goal. Otherwise, you have a house that's going to sit on the market forever and ever and ever. And then, of course, if you do have a great, well-positioned home that looks good, smells good, it's got all those. Even now, that's going to stay on the market a little bit longer. There's may not be anything wrong with it. It's the market, right?
Yeah,
it's the market, and we've got to learn how to manage our sellers, who a lot of them are still thinking I can price it higher than market value, and I'm going to get 15 offers in a week. We're the ones who have to come and give them the reality, give them the hard truth. Sometimes the market's changed.
I think that's great, and I want to spend some time there. And this, I think, is going to be beneficial for especially those agents that have not been through this before. And I would encourage everyone, no matter what brokerage you're at, our leadership. I was on a call with a few of our leaders here at EXP, and the conversation came up about peacetime generals versus wartime generals. And our CEO Glenn is like, hey, listen, we are a wartime company, and whatever brokerage you're at, I think that it's a good time to take a look and see who am I surrounded by, who's leading the ship. Are you a peacetime general or a wartime general? Because we're headed into a war, and I need to be behind a wartime general, right? And that kind of is the thing that's trickled down through leadership here. To that point, you mentioned having to have tough conversations with sellers. And if your sales manager and if your broker doesn't know and doesn't understand how to have those, if they've never been through a market downturn, if they've never seen it, or certainly have gotten rusty at it, it's time to maybe take a look at, hey, is this the right place? So I will drop this, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on times that I've had to have those tough conversations with sellers. One of the best strategies that I found is to say to that is to position yourself, number one, on the same side of the table right. as your seller, right, as your listing appointment, and saying, hey, here's what we need to do. Everything is we. It's us versus them. Okay, it's us versus the buyer. It's us versus the market. It's us versus the appraiser. It's us versus whomever. As we're looking at issues and things that need to be done or changed. The other thing that I recommend is bringing in that stager. Okay, and then you get the opportunity to make that stager be the bad guy. Right. And you can go in and say, right, because you get to go in and say, oh, you know what? Because guess what? Your seller loves that, dinosaur mural in their kids' room. They love that. They thought that was a great idea. And it was for, little Johnny. So You go in there and you get to go on the listing console and say, "Oh my gosh, I love that dinosaur mural. That's so amazing. That's rockstar. Wow." Then when you're sitting down going over the numbers, you can say, "Hey, I want to get my stager out here and get their thoughts on that dinosaur mural and what they think that's going to do for value." I love it, but we want to take a look and see. We want to see what the market is going to say about it, and our stager is the perfect person for that. Do you find that to be effective strategies? That's something you teach, or do you have other strategies for having those tough convos?
Well, that is definitely one of them. That is definitely one of them. And if I like to have the meeting before the meeting with the stager and kind of
That's
give them a
good.
heads up.
Right. Right.
Here's some
Right.
things that kind of don't make sense to me.
Yep.
That dinosaur mural is awesome, and yet that you and I both know it's not going to help sell the house, right?
Right. Right.
So give your stager a heads up. Number one, when I'm walking through a house, I typically focus on a couple things. I'm not going to go in there and beat them down on what needs to be updated and changed and all that. I mean, if it's a conditions in the house, yeah, we'll talk about that. But the staging stuff, that's the stager. I like to just kind of walk out and say there's two things. Number one, declutter is number one, and depersonalize, and that covers a whole lot. Declutter, depersonalize. So you just go through that, and you talk about you want to make your closets look like they're bigger than they're not, and how do you do that? You don't stuff more stuff in them. You take stuff out and make them look spacious. Because if you've got a cluttered closet, the buyers are probably walking through saying, "Not enough closet space." So that's one thing. There's a couple other things. How do we deliver? How do you set yourself up to deliver bad news? Because
Great question. Tell us how.
Sometimes sellers are doing this. They'll walk you through the house, and they want to tell you everything, right, about the house. I like to walk through a home by myself. I want to see it the way a buyer is, the way an agent's going to see it. I don't want the influence of the sellers. So you walk through a house by yourself if you can. Not always, and sometimes they want to show you everything. But here's what happens is they're going to tell you, "Oh man, we put this awesome carpet in the guest bath." If you start being negative on some of the stuff that they
gross.
did,
Yeah, it's so gross. That's so gross.
Sometimes or look at all of this cool stuff we did. Look at the paint color we did to the master bedroom. It's a cool shade of purple and pink. It's awesome. We love it. If you start dogging their house and everything that they're doing, they're going to think, "Man, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about." In some cases, not every.
Right.
And yet, if you say, "Wow, I really like this. I really like this," in their mind, they're thinking, "Okay, the price is going to go up."
Yeah.
And so we got to be careful. And yet, here's something that if the folks are listening. Here's a phrase on how to set people up to deliver some bad news. And it goes like this. Tony, if there's anything that's gonna any part of our conversation that makes you feel uncomfortable, just realize I'm telling you the truth. And you do want an agent that's going to be honest with you, don't you?
That's big. That's big.
And then you just
get their permission.
You get their permission. You get their permission. And they want an honest agent. That's one way to set up, let's talk about that dinosaur.
I love that. I love it. I absolutely love it. By the way, my gosh, there's already been so much value already. Thank you so much, Robert. Like, share, subscribe. There's already been tips in here that I think you can take and apply right now in your business. If you've gotten value out of this, please take a moment. It takes you like a half a second. Here, I'll wait even. Okay, there you go. You had a half a second. That's all you need. That's as long as it takes to like, share, subscribe, and click that bell for notifications every time that we go live, so that you pop up on the LinkedIn feed or on YouTube. So please take that moment to do that. So, all right, so we've covered, Robert, what it looks like for the new agents. We've covered some tips for agents trying to level up. Now let's talk about the cream of the crop. Let's talk about those agents that have teams. Let's talk about independent brokers. Let's talk about folks that are already out there, already crushing it. But as we head into this downturn, they need to keep crushing it, and then they really need to take it to that next level. And really, they're best suited to do so. So how do they do that? How do you coach those folks?
So that's a really great question. And coaching the megas, the top agents, they are, let's just say, all over the map because they have been successful in different aspects. You got one mega agent, they may have a farm of 10,000 homes, You have another one that's got billboards. You have another one that specializes in open houses. You have another one that has a team of 12, 15 agents on it. So they're all over the place, right? As far as how they got to be where they're at. What they have done is they figured out of all the different marketing methods, of all the ways of prospecting and getting clients, I really like open houses. And they may have an open house tour, every Sunday or Saturday, where they got, maybe one or two houses that they got open, and that's their deal. That's what they do. So yeah, you have to lean into exactly what they want to do, because if you got somebody that's doing great business in an open house, it's going to be initially a hard conversation to get them to shift and do geographic farming. That's not their deal. And so what we want to do is we want to encourage them to keep doing what they're doing and increase it. So, whatever that is, last year at this time, it was sometimes a challenge to do an open house, because the moment you put it on MLS, you got 3 contracts.
Yeah.
And they accepted one, the very next day before we got to the weekend. Do you still do the open house? Do you not do it? Right. So, so we gotta lean in with what they're doing really, really well. Take a look at their organization and what they're doing. And it's real similar with any type of like martial arts, right? When they teach you how to take a punch in the martial arts, they don't teach you how to stop it. They teach you how to go with it and let their energy, backfire towards them, essentially, right? So let's take whatever energy they're putting out there and let's just level it up. Let's make it a little better. Maybe they're ready to add a different type of marketing strategy. So then we'll go into, ideas on what's the perfect farm. Let's take a look at it. We'll talk about, what's the turnover rate in there? Does anybody already own that farm? Let's look at it over a 2-year period and see if there's going to be enough in there. Oh, and by the way, if we're going to farm it, what are we exactly going to do? Are we going to door knock? Are we going to mail postcards? Are we going to put door hangers? What does that look like? What's the cost? Because if you do it just 1 month, might as well not do it.
Right.
You got to stick in there. You got to be there 12 months, at least the minimum of one piece of communication with them. So the strategies are all over the place. And yet here's the reality. We've got to double down on what we're doing. Whatever you're doing, you got to lean into it and do more. If you're prospecting and you were generating, a good amount of income, making 25 contacts, conversations per day, maybe now we're going to have to up it to 30 or 35 just to keep the same level of income. Because we can either increase the activities or decrease your goals. Maybe you're okay making $50,000 less this year. I don't know. We're all different, but we got to explore that. So there's lots of opportunities for, especially the mega teams right now. When it gets tough, there's talk of a recession, inflation, interest rates, all of that kind of stuff. And yet when things go negative in any economic environment, the folks who stick it out and put more effort into it, they take market share, and they don't lose it when the times get good. They just don't lose it. So it's really kind of doing so many things with the megas, and it's really it is so specific that but you just got to lean into it. You just got to do more.
Right. And I love that. So, I mean, it sounds like, and there's a few options here. Of course, first is double down and lean in. There's also the opportunity, as Jay Kinder talked about building other oil wells, right? And having additional streams of income and different things that are going in to help supplement that. So as you continue to do what's been effective for you as a mega, you want to take a look at expenses, number one, as well. And like, hey, what are we spending money on that we can maybe cut back on, and then invest that savings into another oil well and into building something else, a different stream. And then to your point about doubling down, one of the things I've seen great coaches such as yourself do is go in and say, okay, you're doing open houses. That's great. How can we add on to that? Right. It's not saying we need to either do geo farming or open houses. That's an easy one because you're already doing open houses and it's working for you. But how do we add geo farming into your open house strategy and say, hey, you're doing this open house. Why don't we farm right to this community where you're doing this open house? And how do we leverage some additional strategies to be able to take that 10x? business and take that to next approach. How do we do? Okay, door knocking. Yeah. How do we add or door knocking? How do we make what we're doing more effective? And then how are we doing on follow-ups for those open houses? How are we doing, with those referral networks and who do you knows and all that kind of stuff, and making sure again that we're squeezing every single drop going into this market shift.
Yeah, it's interesting that you brought up expenses. I was talking to a gentleman yesterday. He does about, get this, been in the business 35 years. He does about 60 transactions a year by himself. Wow. No transaction coordinator, no assistant. So we're talking about that, and and this is getting back to how do we work with the megas, the icons. He says, Robert, I am massively profitable.
Really?
He says, I don't have a lot of expenses. I'm really lean, because I was asking him questions. Have you thought about a buyer's agent, getting an assistant, transaction coordinator?
Leverage.
Once I do that, I start having higher fixed costs. Now, this is a guy, he's been selling for 35 years. He tells me he's 2 years away from retirement. He's like, I don't know if I'm ready or willing to leverage. He says, everybody's talked about it. He says, I make a ton of money and I'm really, really profitable. So it's like, wow, somebody doing 60 transactions, if they were a 25-year-old versus a 65-year-old, it could be a different conversation. But he says, I could retire today if I want to. He says, I think I just want to give it 2 more years and really give myself that income buffer that I'm going to need during retirement. I was like, man, awesome. Kudos to you that you've been so successful. But his big deal was profitability. He says there's a lot of people that sell 60 homes. They got these massive teams and they're not making any money.
I've seen that. I've definitely seen that. And depending on what the strategy is, depending on where you're getting your leads, and depending on what the splits are, it can be very challenging right now to be a team lead, to be a mega icon, which is why it's important to be constantly sharpening your sword and getting around other top entrepreneurs, other teams that are succeeding at that level, not only where you are, but where you want to go. Right. At one point, I was I was one of the top agents at my Remax office, and I thought that was the ceiling. I was like, hey, I'm number one in the office, great, and then I got to another company where, there was an agent doing over 100 deals a year personally. And I was like, oh my God, yes, I want to be that guy. And I get over there. And then I come to, here at EXP, I see Jay Kender did 636 transactions by himself. And I was like, okay, how do I sign up for that and learn from those folks?
Right.
Andrew Franklin. I had Andrew Franklin on last week. He did over 1,000, and he and his team over 1,000 transactions in a 12-month period. So, as you step into these different lanes and step into these different things, you get to learn and you get to say, okay, what other wells are these people using that I'm not using? What are their strategies? It begins to expand your pond into an ocean, and you get to really see what's happening behind the curtains and surround yourself by people that are crushing it at another level.
Right. And learn how to hire.
Yes.
There's a whole skill in getting people on, like-minded folks. There's the saying, I'm sure you've heard this, Tony, hire for culture, train for skill.
That's good.
Because you can have the most skillful person here. And, it goes back, Jack Welch, in one of his books, he was the CEO of GE for 20 years. And in one of his books, he said, we divided all of our managers into A, B, and C. He says, the A people, they were easy. They hit their numbers and they fit in cultural wise. They were amazing. The C's didn't hit their numbers and they were not a good cultural fit. They were easy to get rid of. He says, the B's, we always struggled with the B players because they always hit their numbers, but they were a culturally misfit in the company. There were some values that they didn't believe. And he says it was always a struggle. We liked their production. We just didn't like how they dealt with people or treated people, or, they had something going on in their personal life we didn't agree with. So we want, and typically our teams are not thousands and thousands of employees. We've got pretty small teams, and we get real personal in the lives of our team members. So you really want to hire for that cultural fit and train them for the skills. The skill part, I think, is easy.
It really is. In most cases, it's about saying less. So, and you can learn a lot of skills through that. So that's wonderful. So you also have a upcoming expansion class, right?
We
Coming
do.
up. Okay. So tell us about that.
So we actually have two classes coming up. It's the same class. We're just offering it through a couple different hosts. The first one is called Expand, and it starts January 26th. And our host for that is Randy Warren with Town Square Mortgage, and the title company is Tiago Title Cafe Caps. So they're hosting this Expand class, and it starts.
But it's sold. Is it sold out? Are there some spaces to squeeze some people
Yeah,
in?
yeah.
Or kind of what's the deal?
We're still going through the launch process. Yes, and it's not sold out yet, and yet we will get to a maximum number. And yet you can go to Eventbrite and then just search Expand, EXPAND, and both of these classes will pop up. So that's the one that starts on January 26th. And the second one kicks off on January 31st. And our host, our partners in that one is Jerry Tomlinson team with Supreme Lending, and Stuart Title with Kendra Kennedy. And the business development person for Jerry's team is Ali Aiken. So we've got two different classes going on. It's a 49-hour class. It's 1 day a week for 7 weeks. 1 day a week for 7 weeks. We cover a lot of material, and if anyone's struggling, we will get you into production. The accountability is super high. We use technology. You're reporting your numbers every day, and we're coaching you through that, and it's a fun class. So whoever's out there, just go to Eventbrite, and Bright is BRITE. Just go to eventbrite.com and do a search for Expand, and you'll see both classes pop up. And just go ahead and register. The first day's free. Just come out and experience it. It's high level, and I guarantee anybody who shows up for the first day, Tony, they will literally, if they're walking across the street to an appointment right after class, they literally will use something that they learned that day.
That's great. That's great. And what does your average client? How much do they increase their sales as a product of going through the Expand?
So that's a really good question. We will push, and a lot of it depends. So let me answer it that way.
How hard are they going to work, right? Or kind of what's the?
It truly does. It depends on, number one, are they willing to put forth the effort? Because we can't make any guarantees. The other thing is, where are you? Are you a new agent? Are you a capper? Are you a mega? So the newer agents are still working their sphere and all of that. You will make transactions. You will change your mindset. You will have more gratitude in your life after the course, and you will get into production without a doubt. You will get into production, and so we're really encouraged. Just come out on day one. We probably average 2+ referrals per person on the first day. Wow. On the first day. So we have a lot of fun. I mean,
what does that do for your business, right? You get 2 additional referrals. Average price point being, $500K. I think in this area, at least, where you're having it, what does that do for your business to get 2 extra sales this year?
Yeah. And that's just 1 day.
And that's free. That's day one, which is free, by the way, right? So, you're giving away a lot of good stuff already today. You've given us great stuff for free. Thank you so much, Coach Camacho. We appreciate it. And any kind of parting thoughts or wrap ups?
Party thought wrap up. Yes. Get focused. Get your head straight. Mastermind with the best of the best. Find some great folks. Listen to the podcast like this. I've been a fan of Nolly Williams for a long time. I know he was here. So listen to these folks who have paved the path and just duplicate, rip off and duplicate what they're doing. R&D it and apply it to your business and get really, really purposeful, really focus on your calendar, and then follow your calendar. It's one thing to have your calendar time block. It's a completely different thing to honor your time blocks.
Wow.
So put that together first, honor your time blocks, and just do the work. That's all it is just do the work. Our business is simple. It's not always easy.
That's right. That's right. And ultimately, as y'all know, I end by telling you that you are right. You are 100% correct. If you've heard all of this stuff that Coach Camacho has told you, that I've given you today, and everyone in the podcast, if you hear that and you say, I can do this, you're right. you can do it,
Right.
right? If you read it and you listen to it and you intake this and say, I can't do that, that's not going to work for me. You're right. You're 100% right. It's not going to work for you. I talk to agents all the time. It's like, I don't think that, that's going to work for me. And I say, hey, you're probably right. Thanks. Let me go talk to someone else, right? Because I can guarantee you're right. If you think it's not going to work for you, I guarantee I'll do you one better. I know it's not going to work for you. You don't need to think. So always take that, always internalize that. If you think that you can do this and that you're going to go out there and crush it, you're going to apply this, it's going to 10x your business. It is. And I'm here to help. Coach Camacho is here to help. How do they reach you?
Man, I'll just give out my phone number. How's that?
As long as you don't give mine out. I'm kidding.
I'm pretty liberal with it. 214-808-9491. 214-808-9491. You can text me. I usually don't answer numbers that I don't recognize, so text me first.
And social, any preferred social platform?
Just Robert Camacho. Just my name. Yep.
Got it. So same here. Y'all know EXP agents, of course, hit me on workplace chat. That's the best way. If you're not at EXP yet, please hit me on LinkedIn. Just search my name, Tony King, LinkedIn. And I look forward to hearing from each and every one of you. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week. And we will see you next week. I've got incredible guests waiting for you all next week. It is going to be mind-blowing. We're going to talk all about CRMs and how to use them effectively, right? Doesn't do any good to have this incredible, outstanding, amazing CRM if it just is collecting dust, right? And you're using your cell phone. Cell phone's a great CRM, but you got to use it, right? Or you can utilize a KV Core or follow-up boss. There's all kinds of them. So that's what we're going to talk about next week is what it looks like to actually use a CMA for the purposes of lead generation. So that's what we're talking about. That's it for this week. Thank you all so much. God bless. Have a wonderful day.
See you guys.
Thanks again, Coach Camacho.
You bet. Thank you, Tony.